In order that all sentient beings may attain Buddhahood, from my heart I take refuge in the three jewels. In order that all sentient beings may attain Buddhahood, from my heart I take refuge in the three jewels. In order that all sentient beings may attain Buddhahood, from my heart I take refuge in the three jewels. Whatever the virtues of the many fields of knowledge, all are steps on the path of omniscience. May these arise in the clear mirror of intellect. O Manjushri, please accomplish this. Good evening and welcome. We continue with Moonbeams of Mahamudra, the enhancement section. Ideally finishing the enhancement section. If not, it'll spill over into next week. And so we're on 590, where are we? 390, 406. Who's on first here? Actually 407. Right after those amazing instructions. Yeah, let's review that. So on the bottom of page 406. There are three vital points essential to all path integrations. So this section of enhancement is about path integration, integrating all experiences into the path. So enhancement turns out to be ways of integrating experience onto the path. First, identify thoughts. No matter what good or bad situations occur, how they appear, start with recognizing thoughts and not just letting things be as they are. In the middle, let go of any sense of self. That's easy, just do that, yeah. Whatever arises, do not distort it by having attachment or aversion towards it, or by trying to block or establish it. Give up the entanglements of a belief in a self without seeing or holding anything as problematic or meritorious. Rest right with that thought without being affected by the intellect. In the end, avoid the difficult passages of hope and fear. Do not entertain hopes or fears, such as hoping that by practicing in that way something will happen, or fearing that nothing will, or hoping that things will manifest as the path, or fearing that they won't. Even if subtle thoughts involving hopes or fears come up, let go without fixation. Let go without fabrication or contrivance, right within whatever occurs, and be set free without clinging. So is this really page 408 for you, Matthew?
No, not anymore. I got it wrong.
It's similar. Oh, yeah, he goes through like the same scheme, right? This is the summary version. Okay, so we should be aware on 407. We should be aware of these three modes in all instances of path integration. Okay, so the explanation of the 6 types of path integration. So here we have integrating thoughts into the path, the instructions for turning bad omens into auspicious ones, integrating mental afflictions into the path, the instructions for transforming poison into amrita, integrating god demons into the path, the instructions for converting obstacles into cities, integrating suffering into the path, the instructions of bodhicitta, integrating illness into the path, the instructions for equalizing the elements, and integrating death into the path, the instructions that point out the mother and child dharmatas. And then in the book, Vivid Awareness, which has a subtitle of The Mind Instructions of Kempo Gongshar, and its authorship is Kenshin Trongu. Gives a commentary on this wonderful text by Kempo Gongsha. And part 4 of this text has this section called Following Through in Our Lives. Taking the situations of our lives as the path, taking joy and sorrow as the path, taking pain and illness as the path, taking afflictions and emotions as the path, taking the bardo as the path. So very similar. Those 5 are very similar.
Derek?
Yes, sir.
So these are among the instructions that Kempo Gongsha gave to Trungpa Rinpoche, correct?
I would imagine so.
Well, I mean, as far as we know.
Yeah. I think this text, Vivid Awareness, he received and studied with Kempo Gongsha. Yeah. Okay, so here we go. First one, integrating thoughts into the path, the instructions for turning bad omens into auspicious ones. Thoughts purify thoughts. I don't know what he's thinking, but my thoughts don't purify thoughts. As the two-part Hevajra says, just as water that has entered the ear will be extracted by more water, likewise thoughts of entities will be purified by ascertainment. The method of purification on 408, the top. Do not regard thoughts as things to be given up. Take them as the path by integrating thoughts into thoughts that reflect their own inherent nature. That's a little unclear, I guess. The Exalted Gampopa states, do not reject the internal mind's thoughts. Regard thoughts as useful. We often hear this idea that make thoughts your meditation. In the Mahamudra tradition, regard thoughts as indispensable. See them as necessary. See them as something dear to your heart. If you do that, thoughts will be thoughts that reflect their own inherent nature. Thoughts will be your friends. Thoughts will be your path. Thoughts will be fuel for your prajna. So, the method for purification is to take thoughts as being indispensable, useful, and necessary, and dear to your heart. I imagine that part of the result of doing that would be that we realize very clearly how important it is to have positive thoughts, I would imagine. First, let's see, although the Exalted Gampopa taught numerous ways to integrate thoughts into the path, in this context, his procedure is as follows. First, identify thoughts. When a subtle or coarse thought of any kind, virtuous or unvirtuous, arises in your mind, it may cause uneasiness in your mind to clearly experience pleasure or discomfort. If that happens, don't just let that thought be as it is. Recognize it directly with mindfulness. In the middle, let go of any sense of self, disengaging from that thought, drawing your mind in. What does that mean? Drawing your mind in. And meditating on remedial, non-conceptual wisdom is not it. This is not the way to do it, right? So one common reaction to thought is that we sort of go away from thought mentally, and we sort of turn inward to avoid the thought, and instead try to meditate on what we think is non-conceptuality. That's not it. Analyzing a thought in terms of its origin, abiding, departure, and so forth, and determining it to be without any essence is also not it. I added also. But those are common practices in early stage Mahamudra practice, looking at origin, abiding, and departure, and determining the essencelessness.
So that would that be not clinging to the thoughts, just observing them rise and fall?
Well, he didn't say anything about clinging or not, but
No.
it's it's uh, it's it's a lot of like conceptual effort, looking at where they come from and so forth, and then the determining is like a conceptual process. It seems. So he says that's not it either. First, letting a thought go, then pursuing it and sustaining it with mindfulness is not it either. So letting thoughts do what they please, and then like chasing after them and trying to like keep them present so that you can work your magic on them is not it. The true spiritual practice is to simply recognize the thought and let that thought be, however it is, without any compartmentalization or corruption, i.e., without any contrivance. Do not regard it as a problem or a virtue. Even if it stops, don't stop. If often when you look at thoughts, they sort of dissolve. But don't stop. Sustain vividness, crispness. So vividness and crispness are not really qualities of thought, they're quality of the perceiver. So it's a little bit like pay more attention to the perceiver than the object, loosely, spaciously, with vibrancy. By doing that, no matter what thought arises, you do not need to abandon it or adopt it, block it or encourage it, alter it, or manipulate it, change it, or establish it. The thought itself clearly arises as meditation. This is what is meant by incorporating thoughts into the past. Maitripa explains, from the unborn, a thought suddenly appears. That very thought is the essence of the expanse. From the beginning, those two are not separate. Those two are of equal taste, I teach. Those two being the thought and the essence of the expanse. So that sort of sums up the mistake that is made in the first three options that he goes through, of disengaging and drawing your mind in, is that we feel like the thoughts are not the same as the essence of dharmata, of the expanse. We feel like they're different, and so that we have to like do something to them. Top of 409, Exalted Gampopa proclaims, undistorted thoughts are naturally dharmata. Know that uncontrived, they are free in their own place. So there's a little bit of like a preference here, it seems, of like, if you distort your thoughts, the implication is that if you distort your thoughts, they're no longer naturally dharmata. Now, maybe the naturally is like is like a qualifier, because everything is dharmata, so your thoughts are still dharmata, but maybe they're not naturally dharmata because once we've distorted thoughts, they're no longer natural. Something like that. Know that uncontrived, they are free in their own place. The exalted good Songpo rather teaches, whenever another thought arises, recognize its essence immediately and relax right into that. Is my sound okay?
May I just
Yeah,
ask a question
yeah.
about that distorting thoughts that arise? So is that sort of like engaging it beyond that first moment, giving it more than just that first moment?
Distorts them, yeah. Yeah, like you're trying to do something to a thought, as if something can be done to a thought. Yeah, so like in any of those three ways, disengaging from it, meditating on remedial non-conceptual wisdom, analyzing a thought in terms of origin, abiding, and departure, determining it to be without any essence. All those distort the thoughts.
It's like giving a thought a second thought.
Ah, that's great. Give thoughts a second chance.
I think we're not supposed to do that.
No, that's a
Okay.
good way of summing it up. Don't give thought a second thought. Don't give a second thought to thoughts. First thought, best thought. The exalted, let's see, whenever another thought arises, recognize its essence immediately and relax right into that. There's no doubt. It's free on the spot. It also says thought movements are like breezes, not solid things, not clung to. Movements are fine. Thought movements are like breezes, not solid things, not clung to. Movements are fine. So thoughts are movements of the mind. They're not like discrete phenomena or things that had like you can't like delineate them and separate them from the background, from everything else. And that, so it's sort of like the whole field of the mind is constantly moving and weaving with energy, like energy. And like we perceive parts of that energy field as thoughts and in our normal day to day. But in meditation, if we go even further with that, in order to like analyze the nature of those delineated wave patterns, then it enhances them even further. It like solidifies them even further. So just let them be. Let them do their wiggling around. That is called thoughts arising as meditation. Recognize their essence and you're free from blocking and producing them. What is their essence?
Dharmata?
Dharmata, naturally Dharmata. Thank you. Those who are unable to do that may find at first that turbulent thoughts disturb their mind and unsettle their spiritual practice. No kidding. Since thoughts and karmic winds operate together, those are just experiences of distorted karmic winds. Actually, there's nothing that is not included within spiritual practice. Nothing. That means, well, never mind. The natural automatic result of this process is that thoughts will be incorporated into the path comfortably as part of your spiritual practice. When you have become habituated to that, just by recognizing a thought, it will be part of your spiritual practice. What does that mean? Like bringing thoughts onto our path. Our path is like to gradually realize our minds as Dharmakaya, right? And so bringing thoughts onto the path is a way of like resolving one of the fundamental misconceptions that there's a separation between subject and object in our mind. And in that way, by undermining that habitual way of experiencing our minds, brings all experiences onto the path of experiencing everything as Dharmakaya. In the end, what is the end? Avoid the difficult passages of hope and fear. When integrating thoughts into the path in that manner, do not be anxious, hoping that they will arise as the path, or fearing they will not. Do not try to dissect or connect anything at all. Without judgments or clinging, let things go without a trace. No hope, no fear. We should be aware of these three modes of instruction when training in any of the other forms of path integration. How many other forms are there? 5, because there were 6 total. Just checking. 2, On page 410, integrating mental afflictions into the path, the instructions for transforming poison into Amrita. The two-part says, just as those burned by a cooking fire should endure fire again, those who burn with the fires of passion should endure passion's fires. That's a funny system, isn't it? Have you ever heard that those who have been burned by cooking fire should endure fire again? Is that like a common idea?
Is this like the idea that when you fall off a horse, you're supposed to get back on it?
That is more like it. Yeah, it's more like it.
That seems more realistic than jumping back into a fire, I must admit.
Yeah.
Or more sane anyway.
The Samputa Tantra says desire purifies desire. Famous lines. Aggression cleanses aggression. Bewilderment purifies bewilderment. Pride purifies pride. Jealousy cleanses jealousy. The Vajra holders and the others purify everything. Who are the others? The others. The other ones. Yeah, so whenever like you get upset or like really fixated or jealous or prideful and like your partner or friend like points out, aren't you a Buddhist? You're supposed to be like above these things. You can just explain to them that you're cleansing your desire and your aggression, right? And then quote this verse. It's in the Samputa Tantra.
I think I've tried that.
How did it go with your partner?
Not so great. Not so good.
Or he or she, you were cleansed by their retribution.
No cleansing.
No cleansing happened. Once mental afflictions are integrated into the path, since they are of equal taste with Dharmata, their manifestations as mental afflictions are experienced as their essences, which are the five wisdoms. Having purified desire into the discriminating wisdom, so going through the wisdoms, the Buddha wisdom's aggression into the Dharma Dhatu wisdom, bewilderment into mirror-like wisdom, pride into the wisdom of equality, and jealousy into the wisdom that accomplishes all activities. The states of the five victorious ones are evident. The Samputa continues, the wisdoms and afflictions become the same. They are the five families, five wisdoms, and five Buddhas. Therefore, if you apply the instructions for path integration, even when you avail yourself of the 6 types of objects as sense pleasures, you won't be tainted by the deficiencies of those objects. Instead, they will be like poison, transformed into Amrita. The two-part teaches the incorrigible actions of people, whatever they are, will cause bondage, but with methods, those very, i.e. same actions, will free beings from their bondage in samsara. There's he doesn't quote it, but there's another famous line from Sarha that comes up. It's like, that by which fools are bound, the wise are freed. By that, the wise are freed. Availing ourselves of objects, the great Brahman observes, we are not sullied by objects. Like utpalas are untouched by muddy water. So utpalas are these beautiful blue flowers that bloom once in a blue moon. And they rise up on top of the water, so they're untouched by muddy water. Yogins and yoginis take refuge in what is the root. How can poison harm the one with the mantra for poison, the one with the antidote? Cynthia.
So I'm not entirely clear. Is in this context, is the relationship of the wisdoms one of, it's not really transformation in this case, is it? I mean, like,
That's a good point.
because he's used the word transformation once, but I'm not, typically, there's the schema and there's transformation, and then sometimes the higher level than that is, or the other level
Recognition.
or just pure recognition, not transformation. So
Yeah.
I'm just curious because you did mention this thing about antidotes and about transformation. And so I'm just
Yeah.
wondering, is this purely recognition at this level?
It certainly does seem like it. It certainly does seem
You know,
like it.
throwing in some of those words that could confuse us.
Yeah. Yeah. So, like, the difference might be that transformation would be like drawing in the emotions
Right, doing something.
and then like seeing their essence and popping them or something, right? Whereas here it's simply recognizing. And they're using the term integrating over and over again as opposed to transforming.
Right, the only thing is that they did say at the bottom of 410, when they said the thing about like poison transform,
Transform.
and
Yeah.
read that seems like that's in a different class of,
Yeah.
code. So I just wanted to kind of confirm that.
Yeah. Well, that difference is big in the Dzogchen tradition and the Mahamudra tradition. They, from what I've seen, they blend those two things: the transformation and the recognition. I
Gotcha.
think.
That's probably why I'm
Yeah.
sensitized to that distinction.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sue,
Well,
and Kongshul goes through that in the creation. Sorry to interrupt you. In creation and completion, he goes through these different ways of working with kleshas, and Trungpa explains it at some length in his commentary to creation and completion by John Kongshul. Sorry, Sue.
So when it says that you would experience desire as discriminating wisdom, it's because they're the same. Is that why it's not
Yeah.
transformation?
Well,
It says
that's in the
it's the-
section that ends with they will be like poison transformed into Amrita. So this section does seem like
I mean, I took it that way, but I don't really know anything about it. So
yeah. Yeah, well, that's why I say they don't really seem to be. He doesn't really seem to have a hard and fast distinction between transformation and recognition, because earlier he just kept saying recognize, 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 and maybe it's actually intentional that with the kleshas there is a transformation, and with other things it's more of a recognition. I don't know.
I mean, actually, I thought in a way this whole section was sort of about transformation, just in terms of these three steps.
Yeah.
Um, I, but that isn't that what this whole chapter is sort of about? Identify, let go of
Well,
self,
well,
and
transformation would be different.
okay,
Where he says, don't do this, don't tamper with it, don't do this, don't do anything.
okay, so
That's
you're
like
actually
slightly
doing
different.
something. Yeah.
With
Okay.
transformation, there's a sense of like you're changing X into Y.
When do I get to learn how to do that?
Yeah, what's your schedule like next week?
Or you don't need to learn it.
Okay, where are we? The great Brahman observes on 411, availing ourselves of objects, we are not sullied by objects like utpalas are untouched by muddy water, utpalas rather. Yogins and yoginis take refuge in what is the root. How can poison harm the one with the mantra for poison? He also says, just as water from the salty oceans becomes sweet after it is taken up by the clouds. So that's a very good metaphor that is really neither transformation nor not clearly like recognition either. It's like separation, right? It's like the pure water is naturally separated from the salt in that process. So you could say, well, you're transforming the combined thing of salty water, or you could say, well, the salt hasn't changed and the water's changed. They're just, recognizing the water. But anyway, a stable mind that benefits others turns the poison of objects into amrita. Now that's a key point that wasn't raised earlier, is a stable mind that benefits others. And we'll see that in a couple of pages in one of the other ones. But that's a key feature, is like, this all assumes that we have like a very firm commitment to and understanding of and practice of bodhicitta.
But turns poison into amrita seems like that's
Transformation.
a transformation to me. But
it does. Yeah. The actual path, integration, desire, identify when your mind is passionately in the throes of desire. That's the hard part, right? When you're in the throes of desire, how are you going to identify? It's always later. When you're attached to and fixated upon an attractive external object or sentient being and wish to possess that object or person. Aggression, identify when your mind bears deep-seated dislike of an animosity towards an object or situation, such as an enemy or a hindrance. Bewilderment, identify when your mind is unclear, as when feeling befuddled or idle, or as in a temporary state of torpor, such as when feeling sleepy, dull, or sluggish. Pride, identify the mindset when you feel impressed with yourself and superior to others, such as when you think, me? What about me? On the basis of attachment to yourself, and you feel proud that you are better than others. Me. Me. Jealousy, identify the abrasive state of mind that keenly feels loss and unhappiness in relation to others' prosperity and wealth. Once you have identified those, apply the previous instructions about letting go of a sense of self, avoiding the difficult passages of hope and fear, and so forth. So referring back to those 3 steps at the beginning of this section. Sometimes you should use the method of arousing stronger than usual attachment or aggression towards an object of desire or aversion. The reference points for your mental afflictions, thereby creating powerful mental afflictions. Allow intense attachment or aggression to build up, or intentionally generate it such that your breathing becomes uncomfortable. Your facial expression changes and your body trembles and shakes. So I've been practicing that, by the way, by like reading current events, the news. It's very helpful, very good support. I'm very grateful for what's going on. Then identify that thought.
Is that part of your slogan practice? Being grateful to everyone?
That's right.
Everything.
So then identify the thought without getting rid of, and the so forth was back to like not getting rid of the thought, not trying to do something with it, draw it in, draw it out, put it on its head, bury it, and giving up in hope and fear about the whole process. Giving up, letting go of expectation, right? It is taught that this, this is going to work. Giving that up. It is taught that the stronger the mental afflictions, the more effective the path integration will be, and the greater the purification of the usual seemingly existent mental afflictions. This was a favorite phrase of Trungpa Rinpoche: the more confusion, the more wisdom; the more neurosis, the more wisdom. As Maitripa says, mental afflictions are great wisdom. Like a forest feeds a fire, they aid yogins and yoginis. They just relish neurotic situations. Oh, you're having a neurotic upheaval? Great. Let me stoke it for you. That's what partners are for, right? Buddies. The way to know if you have successfully incorporated mental afflictions into the path or not is as described above. But seriously speaking, you do not want any like spouse or significant other or close friend to know about this section because it's deadly. Integrating god demons into the path, the instructions for converting obstacles into cities. It is said, thoughts are hindering spirits. All hindering spirits come from thoughts. Where else could they come from, right? Naropa teaches what the obstacles of illness and spirits come down to are thoughts. When you're sick, sickness lies in the thought. When you feel harmed, the harm is found in the thought. When you die, death is in the thought. That's pretty radical. Death is a thought. When you're born, birth is in the thought. Pleasure and pain and all the rest, everything is thought. Mind does not exist as anything. If you cut through the ground and root of thoughts, illness and spirits will not occur. The great exalted one, Milarepa, teaches the appearances of demons, the perception of demons, and the thoughts of demons. They appear, yet they appear from the yogin himself. They dissolve, yet they dissolve into the yogin himself. So we generate our own demons. We bring them. We have our own stock of demons that we're given. You know, when he says Naropa, he doesn't like give him any epithet. But Milarepa, wow, the great exalted one. Rakshasi. Now that is a cool name, isn't that? That is such a cool name. Rakshasi. That's like for a band or something, right? A rock band, or maybe like an alias for a writer, for a movie director or something, or an actor. When the propensities of your own confused mind didn't cause your thoughts to manifest as enemies, how could I, Rakshasi, appear as your enemy? What a great line. It's like you could sort of see like Andrew Dice Clay saying that, right? Again, these maras of latent tendencies will arise from your mind. If you don't know the suchness of mind, I won't go just because you tell me to. Wow, that's weird. Again, these maras of latent tendencies will arise from your mind. If you don't know the suchness of mind,
Is that the Mara speaking?
It's
I won't go.
Rakshasi. Yeah, Rakshasi. It appears to that Rakshasi is a demon. Right? I won't go just because you tell me. It's probably in the footnote.
I was thinking that was like a reference back to the Milarepa story about the demons, and when he asked them to leave, and that sort of thing. That was what I was thinking, is that maybe he was a generation after Milarepa and knew that story, but that could be complete fabrication.
Well, doesn't it go through isn't this like the four maras?
Oh, it could be. I don't know. I just thought that line made me think of the Mila story about the demons and,
Their eyeballs, the bowl of yogurt.
all that wonderful stuff and how he dealt with them.
He spilled all that good yogurt all over the place. Biography and songs of the great Lord of Yogins, Milarepa, Rakshasi. As said, all perceptions of demons are the magical display of your own thoughts. What seem to be forms of gods or demons are the visions of a mind solidifying its thoughts. An analogy is when you take a rope to be a snake. That rope appears to you as a snake. The causes and conditions for that are a combination of mental and physical. It is said that when winds enter the channel locations related to the three poisonous mental afflictions in your physical body, which is the result of fully matured karma, you experience delusive appearances and conceptual perceptions that correspond to those mental afflictions. That's a very interesting statement about how they viewed appearances to appear, is that it's related to the winds entering into our channels in a certain way. Bewilderment causes you to perceive and experience appearances of Nagas and Earth Lord types. Aggression causes the evil spirits and male spirit types, and desire causes the female spirit types, such as Rakshasis. Rakshasis, I believe, are blood drinkers, Rakshasas. They're female Rakshasas. So later, when those are incorporated into the path, they will be experienced as part of your spiritual practice. Later. Sometime later. Your fearful thoughts will vanish, the atmosphere will be warm, your gloom will disappear. Once the harm they cause is pacified, they come under your power. All that happens like the rising and falling of the balance of a scale. I guess to the extent that we believe them, they increase, and to the extent that we don't, they decrease, something like that. The way to integrate demons into the path, although in annihilating the four demons, so that's the Maras, the four Maras, Gampopa explains the approach of determining that demons lack any nature, which is not exactly in keeping with this context of equalizing taste. What an interesting statement that is, right? So one, he's saying that Gampopa in another text teaches this technique of determining that the demons lack any nature, which is different than the technique given here, because earlier he said determining their essencelessness is not it, right? And which is not exactly in keeping with this context of equal taste. So that's the other thing. He's calling this technique equal taste. However, his presentation of the way to penetrate the vital point in relation to demons that says, rest uncontrived in a state in which a thought appearing as a demon in your own mind are not a duality, and the section on taking god demons as the path seemed to be exactly the point in this context. So apparently Gampopa covers the full gamut. The actual path integration, when the magical displays of god demons actually appear, or your mind is clearly depressed with the worry that they will, even though nothing is happening. Or your fears are overwhelming you and you're starting to panic. Immediately recognize that mind. That very mind can be relied upon as you choose spiritual practice. Cultivate that and so on, following the previous instructions. Cultivate that and so on. Seems to be the same so on as the last so on, which was let go of them. Just recognize them, don't do anything with them. Let go of any hope and fear. Downplay the magical displays regardless of their size. Imagine even more frightening magical displays, almost inconceivable ones, that heaven and earth collide, that you are being beaten and slaughtered by armies of demons with their weapons, burned by fires, dragged through water, and so forth. Magnify those terrifying appearances and bring them into your practice as instructed above. So once you get the technique down, go wild with it and just like really turn it up. Sit there.
I was going to say, or just think about current news.
Yes, exactly. Integrating suffering into the path, the instructions on bodhicitta. The grand collection of Dharma lectures, the exalted Gampopa teaches integrating suffering into the path by seeing the suffering of samsara as kind. Did I read that right? By seeing the suffering of samsara as kind. Integrating the nature of suffering into the unborn state and cultivating love, compassion, and bodhicitta on the basis of suffering. Although overall that is consistent with this point, here I will present the instructions in keeping with the general approach to path integration. So again, he's referring to a text where Gampopa presents a slightly different technique. Broadly speaking, all beings, yourself and others, are plagued by the three types of suffering, which are suffering of suffering, or suffering of pain, sometimes it's called, and suffering of change, uncertainty, impermanence, things are constantly unstable, and then suffering of fundamental suffering, all pervasive suffering of conditioned existence. So, specifically, you can see directly with your own senses that beings create suffering for each other by killing, slaughtering, exploiting each other, even when they are not tormenting each other in those ways. You can see that beings suffer. Excuse me. Gripped by various kinds of unbearable misery related to their own karma. And we can see that, that's for sure. When you hear about such things without having any feelings of affection for those beings, you become afraid that will happen to you due to your own karma and mental afflictions. You become terribly distressed. In order to pacify your karma and mental afflictions and attain liberation, you feel inspired to practice the path. That is the mindset of the Hinayana. Recognizing that all those suffering beings are your kind parents, you feel great affection for them, and then extend that love and compassion to all beings. That is the attitude of the Mahayana. Aren't you glad I caught that one before it happened? Regardless of which attitude you have when you experience vivid pain in your mind, identify it and integrate it into the path using the approach described already. In the end, while in a state... Can you hear me still? Did I just turn the sound off? Good. While in a state that maintains the experiences of your spiritual practice, arouse bodhicitta motivated by your love and compassion for all sentient beings, and make excellent aspiration prayers for the welfare of others. This is very laudable, as Nagarjuna teaches. If you and others in this world wish to attain unsurpassable awakening, you need bodhicitta, its root, firm as the mighty king of mountains, compassion stretching throughout all directions, and wisdom not based on duality. So that's a very famous quote that Chandrakirti quotes in his beginning of the text, Introduction to the Middle Way. He says that bodhisattvas need three qualities: bodhicitta, compassion, and wisdom, a mind of non-duality, that understands non-dual wisdom. And then he explains that the compassion needs to be the third type of the three types of compassion, which is with reference to sentient beings is the first one, with reference to the nature of reality is the second compassion, and the third one is compassion without reference point. Furthermore, in this context, while the radiance of your affection that cannot bear the suffering of sentient beings is unceasing, you are aware that its essence or nature is emptiness. It does not exist as anything at all. That is said to be the unification of emptiness and compassion, or bodhicitta, that is emptiness imbued with the heart of compassion. The two parts says, indivisible emptiness and compassion is called bodhicitta. And that's a famous line. That if you've read, any of you read the book Dawn of Tantra? Yeah, I read it like way back. It came out like in 74. Great book that has alternating chapters by Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche and Herbert V. Gunther from a seminar given in Europa in somewhere in that time period, like 74. So it couldn't have come out in 74, must have been a year or two later. But Gunther has a chapter on this bodhicitta, and he quotes this verse. This is, bodhicitta is the indivisibility of emptiness and compassion. The Vajrapanjara is Tantra, states, whenever the mind meditates on the inseparability of emptiness and compassion, that is the teaching of the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. The Samputa declares, so another Tantra, the nature without elaborations is renowned as prajna. Compassion is what benefits sentient beings, like a wish-fulfilling gem. So, wisdom and compassion. Prajna is the nature without elaborations. They don't have the word knowing, but it's sort of understood. And compassion is that which benefits sentient beings, or that which brings benefit to sentient beings. The great Brahman observes, those who remain in emptiness without any compassion do not discover the sublime path, yet those who only meditate on compassion never attain liberation from this samsara. Whoever can unite the two abides in neither samsara nor nirvana. And I think the next verse of that quote is like, these are the two wings of a bird. Wisdom and compassion. The Shawara states, in the non-judgmental sphere of realization. It's good to know that realization is non-judgmental. Tears flow naturally from overwhelming compassion when the misery of ignorant beings is so clear. Switch places with others and do what is useful. So this is Saraha referring to Tonglen practice, exchange of self and other practice. Cynthia.
This may be a stupid question, but I was wondering when you said that Chandra Kirti, did you say that he said a bodhisattva needs three things, and they were bodhicitta, compassion, and wisdom?
Yeah. So So ask your question.
So I just am wondering, why is it three? Because doesn't bodhicitta include compassion and wisdom? Am I being too simplistic, or?
Well, Nagarjuna and Chandrakirti both separate those two. That bodhicitta is in some sense different than compassion. Now you might have asked, that's why I asked you to ask the question: is bodhicitta different than wisdom?
Oh, okay. So, I mean,
In some sense, bodhicitta is wisdom too, right?
in an ultimate sense, right? Well, that's why it seemed to me that somehow it didn't seem like you need three, but I guess.
But so the distinction is that in this context, or in that context, bodhicitta is defined as the wish to, or the aspiration or determination to become enlightened in order to benefit beings most effectively.
Yeah, that's why I said maybe I'm being too simplistic, but I thought that basically was viewed as a combination of wisdom and compassion.
Yeah, so they're trying to separate the aspiring quality of it, of bodhicitta, that it's this intention. And that's what, like, then Shantideva goes on, his whole book is like, that intention alone is like the most powerful thing in the world. And he sort of backs up, like, from Nagarjuna and Chandrakirti, says, even if you don't have wisdom and real compassion, as long as you have bodhicitta, that's the starting point.
Which is the relative one. You're talking the relative aspirational. There's relative is the aspiring and entering, and then there's ultimate. So I guess
Right.
what I was talking about was more the ultimate, which I thought was kind of viewed as the two things combined.
Yeah. Ultimate bodhicitta is indeed the indivisibility of compassion. And
Okay, so that's what I was.
it's an interesting point that they separate out bodhicitta as opposed to just like being compassionate and having or being wise, that they separate it as a separate faculty that needs to be cultivated above all else.
Right, which I guess is the path aspect. I mean, they're obviously emphasizing the path part of it, the
Or
aspiration.
the directionality, like what is wisdom for? What is compassion for? What is the purpose of those? What are they directed towards?
Hmm.
Sort of thing. I saw another hand. Sue?
I guess I kind of had thought that maybe, you start out with that relative, that the intention kind of is with the relative bodhicitta. Like that's, you're wanting to, to be of benefit in these real situations. And then in the combination of that and your practice, those two wings, that you realize, well, wait a second, how could you know anything if you don't have any skill to see anything? Like they just kind of you get confused about which is which, wisdom or compassion. And that's when they're starting to come together, maybe. So
Yeah, it
I
definitely
don't
has
know
a.
that well, anyways, I was just thinking it's not really an intention at the ultimate bodhicitta, but more.
It's definitely more the relative bodhicitta. It's definitely more of a path-oriented description of qualities that one needs these as to be a bodhisattva. And then if you have those
Mm,
three, then gradually you bring them all together and you have ultimate bodhicitta. And then you're able to implement the entering bodhicitta. So it's really focused on that aspiring bodhicitta, which as we know, so many Tibetan teachers emphasize so much this quality of aspiring to be compassionate. And in the West, we don't do that very much. It's not really taught that much. Like, just aspire to be wise, to be compassionate. Because we're like, well, what does that do? I'm just sitting around aspiring. Why can't I go out and actually help somebody? And they're like, well, just aspire. And it's very much like a practice that has like an enormous power to it. Because if you go out and help people, you very easily get distracted and drawn into hope and fear and kleshas and, gets mixed up in all sorts of agendas and so forth. Which doesn't mean that you shouldn't go out and help people.
right. But
On
I
the
think
other hand,
that's what this is about, how to integrate it, isn't it? What
it
this.
is. It's pointing
Mm.
towards it, yeah. Integrate. That's the key word, right? So then let's see. Integrating illness into the path, the instructions for equalizing the elements. This is a tough one. Overall, the causes of disease are produced by karma and mental afflictions that are brought on by ignorance. The conditions at the start of any illness are the displaced movements of the karmic winds. Those disturb the four elements and create an imbalance in the body's constitution. The results are pain, sensations of mental or physical illnesses, and the like. Illnesses are categorized as those that develop from wind, those that come from bile, those that come from phlegm, and those that are compounds. And this is the traditional Tibetan system of medicine that has like these four causes of illness and these four parts to it. Altogether, there are 404 types of disease. So each one has 101 ramifications. Although many methods for treating illnesses are explained in the medical systems, in this context the approach is as follows. Treat the cause of illness. Since ignorance is the cause, the profound way to treat that is to cultivate awareness, wisdom. The key part of that is that ignorance is the cause of illness. Dispel its conditions. Since the disturbances of the karmic winds are the conditions, the profound way to purify those right where they are is to sustain the uncontrived, intrinsic state of mind using the technique of bringing together the winds and mind. I don't know that we know that technique, so that would be a very helpful technique.
Yeah, and I've been sick, so I've been really studying this, and I don't get it.
I think it begins with like the abdominal breathing that we've been doing on the practice sessions, but it clearly has a lot. I think has a lot more to it than that.
Well, in part, some of what we're talking about tonight, and when we were talking about the emotions and just recognizing them as being karmic winds, it seems like that's
That's a
also
big part of it. Yeah, yeah. Just recognizing illness as karmic movements, as ignorance.
right. Just understanding the whole principle of winds, I think, is helpful to actualize that.
Yeah, yeah. But doing exercises in a specific way, like qigong, like Cynthia is an expert qigong. So doing qigong is a very helpful way of connecting with your winds. Also, in the West, certain disciplines like bowling and pool are very profound methods of connecting with the inner winds. And then thirdly, destroy its results. Since the sensations of suffering are the results, the profound way to cast them off with no remainder, with nothing left, is to meditate on emptiness, the abiding state. Easier said than done. We know all sorts of enlightened teachers who get sick. His Holiness the Dalai Lama had some illness a while ago, right? Went see some doctors here in the West, in New York City. For those reasons, regardless of the type of illness and whether it is new or chronic, the profound way to heal an illness is to integrate it into the path. As explained, integrating illness into the path, the Exalted Gampopa teaches the following 3 points. First, downplay the illness. I like that. Don't make a big fucking deal out of it. Imagine something even greater and more unbearable than your present painful illness. What an interesting technique to include. Is like always remember that there's other people that are suffering way more. But there's got to be somebody who's suffering the most. In the middle, undermine the illness. Examine its origin, abode, departure, color, and shape. Khenpo Tsogyam Gyaltso was big on this. People would come to him with illnesses, and he would say, there is no illness. There's no such thing as illness. Try to find illness. In the end, integrate the illness into the path. Recognize that the one who is sick is the mind. That the one perceiving the illness is the mind, and that mind is unborn like space. And this is very reminiscent of the famous teaching of Vimalakirti Sutra, where the whole sutra is built around this pretext of Vimalakirti sort of pretends to be sick and gets the Buddha to send all of his main disciples to go call on Vimalakirti and wish him good health. And so the Buddha sends all his Shravaka Arhats and all his Bodhisattvas to go pay their respects to Vimalakirti. And Vimalakirti explains that he's sick because all sentient beings are sick. He's sick because of the various poisons and kleshas and so forth of all sentient beings. And then he just destroys each and every one of the Buddha's disciples that were sent.
Wasn't there one question that he asked and they all missed the answer or something? Is that?
Well, they give great answers. He says, what is non-conceptual wisdom or something like that, right? And they give these wonderful, it's a really cool chapter of that sutra. They all give a really wonderful explanation of non-conceptual. I think it's non-conceptual wisdom is the question. And then they get to Manjushri is the last one before Vimalakirti. Manjushri gives a great response. And then Vimalakirti, it's his turn, and he stays silent. And they all say, he got it. He won. Who writes these things. It's amazing sutra. It has such amazing stuff. He turns the Shravaka arhats into women, and they freak out because like they're not supposed to even touch women, and then they're like a woman, and they're like, oh my god, what's going on? It's pretty funny. Overall, that is consistent with this point, except that here the causes and conditions of illness, the mode of illness, and so forth, are not examined and analyzed in terms of their origin, abode, departure, and so on. Not slipping into feeling attachment or aversion for an illness, or blocking or encouraging one identify the clear, painful physical or mental sensations of illness. This is a very interesting part. Those can be relied upon as the true meditation. Sustain that as vibrant clarity without altering or manipulating it with a mind bent on preventing or promoting something. At times, undermine all sense of self. That's the easy part, right? Be it a sense of the one who is sick, the one who feels pain, or the experiencer. Remain without contrivance in a state in which no essence is identified. To downplay the illness, do as what was described above, and keep repeating. Finally, do not entertain hopes or fears, such as hoping that we'll be cured of illness or fear that you will be not. Take 2 aspirin and be certain about the great equality of all things. These days, as a means for becoming grounded in the experience of integrating illness into the path. That's such an interesting phrase. That's like a modern phrase, like being grounded. I wonder what that would be in a more traditional or literal context, becoming grounded. These days, as a means for becoming grounded in the experience of integrating illness in the path, it is thought that we should train by integrating into the path the pain of sitting for a long time in the Vajra position, or any other physical discomfort that we may intentionally create for ourselves. So if you're not sick, you could create pain by sitting for a really long time, or doing other painful postures. It is also taught that, Tapa 418, that by sustaining practice for a long time directly with an illness, without losing the vital point, eventually we won't need to regard pain and belief in a self as enemies or things to be rejected. That's interesting. The belief in the self is not really rejected either. When it says let go of any sense of self, it's like let go of identifying with the sense of self, but don't treat it like a bad guy, I guess. They will arise as meditation. When the hot and cold elements are equalized, serious illnesses and the enhancement of our spiritual practice occur simultaneously. That's a bold statement. Here it is explained that equalizing the elements enables us to dispense with medical treatments for illness. In the end, this is in keeping with the point of equalizing the taste in which hopes and fears are rejected. It is the practice of the Mahasiddhas. There are numerous stories of many masters, such as the exalted Drikompa and the exalted Gutsongpa, who were very ill and were cured only through their ability to equalize the elements. Now, we are not Mahasiddhas, so he's going to now explain how we should regard this.
I was just thinking that it's a little bit like, in Chinese medicine, they generally sort of, when they're diagnosing, they talk about heat and cold and moist and dry and all of that stuff, which is really very elemental.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like they're a little bit in that vein.
Yeah, similar vein. Nevertheless, these days, integrating illness into the path is a special quality of yogins and yoginis, and it is wrong to adopt the dharma of fools who say the support for awakening, that is, our body is without or beyond death or no death. In other words, until you're a Mahasiddha, go to the doctor, take your medicine and things like that. Therefore, on the conventional level, we should rely on the methods for treating diseases and establishing the right interdependent connections and practice rejecting hopes and fears right within awareness of the ultimate. That accords with the point. It is reasonable. It's commonsensical. Finally, integrating death into the path. The instructions that point out the mother and child dharmatas. By being accustomed to integrating all the appearances and thoughts that occur during the circumstances of your life with your spiritual practice, and particularly by being familiar with integrating into the path the dissolution process that happens as you fall asleep and the ensuing luminosity, you will be well prepared to experience integrating death into the path without abandoning it, just as children know how to crawl into their mother's laps. Therefore, right now, apply yourself to taking all varieties of thoughts and appearances, be they congenial or not, be they clear or not, as your path. Like right now, not like later, but right now. And I love this part about falling asleep, like practicing, experiencing the luminosity when you fall asleep. That's very hard, very difficult. You know, if you have like a partner who's like in cahoots with you, they wake you up as soon as you fall asleep. They like wake you up over and over again. That might be a good way to get into a really big argument.
But you can kind of watch the dissolution sometimes.
Yeah, as you're falling asleep.
Yeah, just like everything just falls
Like on the
apart.
cushion, when you fall asleep on the cushion, that's a good time to experience that dissolution. That's why I do that a lot. As you approach the time where death will be the focus of your path, you should let go of any attachments you might have. That's pretty simple. Such as your homeland or possessions. If you're wealthy, make offerings to please your gurus and present dharmas to satisfy the yadams, dakinis, and dharma protectors, the three roots. To your Vajra brothers and sisters, offer enjoyable Gana chakras and give them everything you own. Give everything you own to your Vajra brothers and sisters. Cast far away any negative objects or situations and properly arrange positive, interdependent connections. When death approaches, prepare to integrate it into the path by taking up the vital points of the body, that is, adopting the sleeping position of a lion, which is lying on the right side with the hand under the head on the ear, or sitting upright. That's easier said than done. You're dying, sit upright. Arouse great devotion towards your guru, visualized on top of your head. So these are very good instructions for when the time comes, which we should be practicing beforehand, right? So, dear friend of our Sangha died this morning. Many of you probably know Lopan Lojo Dorje, Dean, the head of three Ana studies. His wife, Donna, died this morning. She'd been ill for some time, and then she fell about a few days ago, and sort of just went downhill very quickly, over the past few days without eating or barely drinking. We left this morning. It's happening all around us. What is to be integrated into the path? Integrate the awareness that you are separated from this life to which you have clung. Integrate your anxious thoughts about dying, which cause your heart to chill, and integrate the sequence of visions of the dissolution process related to the four elements, then illumination, radiance, and so on. So this is a very short allusion to the way that the dissolution process is understood in the Tibetan tradition. As there's an outer dissolution, which is the dissolution of the elements, and then there's an inner dissolution of the different types of conscious formations. And the outer dissolution of the four elements goes through a stage of what he calls here illumination, radiance, and so on. It's usually called approach, near attainment and attainment, and they correspond to these three experiences of light, where the first one is like cool white moonlight, and the second one is like a pale reddish light, like just before dawn, and then the third one is darkness, complete darkness, full attainment, and then after that one enters the great white light of Dharmata. After that, and the dissolution of the elements has, as the different elements dissolve, there's specific experiences, like your body feels really heavy, you can't move when the earth's element dissolves, and then when the water element dissolves, you're like parched, you're just like really thirsty, and so forth. So it's helpful to prepare for death by studying the whole dissolution process, in the hopes that when we die, it will happen in a gradual manner, as opposed to like something very sudden. The way to integrate death into the path of fear and anxieties make you feel averse to this upsetting prospect. If your mind is set on clinging to a sense of self, thinking there is this and that, or if you are wrapped up in the hopes and fears of hoping you will recognize luminosity and fearing that you won't. I mean, that's probably one of the biggest hopes and fears, I think. It's like, to some extent, we've been practicing all of our life to experience some sort of liberation at the time, like during our life, but if that doesn't work, then after our life. And so it's like, there's a lot of hope and fear tied up in like what happens after death. Am I just going to be, like any other sentient being that hasn't spent time cultivating the path and born as a flea or, a mosquito or something, or will I have some inkling of awareness? And it's a big one. Those will hinder your ability to integrate death into the path, so those hopes and fears act as a hindrance. First, simply identify those thoughts and experiences, just like in all of the previous examples, so specifically the one of intense emotions. Then, relying on whatever arises as your true spiritual practice, follow the process explained above, beginning with sustaining that without clinging or manipulating anything, with the mind bent on preventing or promoting something. So I think it's important to read that last sentence, with sustaining that. So with sustaining that spiritual practice, without clinging or manipulating anything, in any sort of this thing, anything with a mind bent, any type of experience of preventing or promoting any inclination towards. So letting go of that. It is taught that while this topic is discussed in many of the Mahayana esoteric instructions for mind training, so we get one tradition of the mind training slogans from Atisha, where we have 7 points and 59 slogans. But he's indicating that there's other mind training traditions in the Kadampa tradition where they go into much more detail on the practice of preparing for death. And I think it's alluded to in our version. There's like if you read the formal text of our version, like in Chamga Kongshul's The Path of Awakening, there's like a little thing at the beginning or the end, I'm not sure which, where it like alludes to some other stuff. This topic is discussed in many of the Mahayana esoteric instructions for mind training. There are numerous esoteric instructions for transferring at the time of death. So transferring means transferring your consciousness into somewhere else, which is a whole other kettle of fish, so to speak. None of those are more profound than sustaining whatever arises without clinging. So this is an interesting statement. There's a lot of emphasis in certain Tibetan traditions on this practice of transferring consciousness transference called Powa in Tibetan. But he's saying it's much more important just to sustain whatever arises without clinging. Sustain, meaning sustaining the awareness without clinging, without contrivance of whatever arises. After the completion of which is very difficult, obviously, which is why the Tibetans teach the transference of consciousness. It's like if that doesn't work, try the backup plan B. After the completion of the dissolution process, natural luminosity will dawn spontaneously and automatically, mixing with the luminosity that you have practiced on the path, as mother and child come together. So that's a very important point, instruction, detail, is that there's all these instructions, shamatha, vipassana, what is pointed out, and the pointing out, where the pointing out conateness or co-emergence, and then ways of sustaining that experience, dispelling deviations and strains, and then these these enhancement practices. There's all these different things that we learn as part of the path, but what I think gets missed often in the process is that the essence of our path is to identify luminosity, identify our mind as empty luminosity, and that's not easy to do. It can only be done in like a non-doing sort of way and a non-conceptual sort of way. But that glimpse here is a figurative term that has a visual implication, which it is not a visual really experience. But gaining some sort of familiarity with the aspect of luminosity of our mind is essential, and that the idea is that feeling of our essence is luminosity, emptiness, that grows over the days, months, and years of our path until ideally we get closer and closer to letting go of attachment and so forth. And when we come to the time of either enlightenment or death, whichever comes first, then the complete luminosity will dawn in our minds. We'll be able to recognize it. That's the whole technique of becoming liberated at death, is to recognize that the luminosity that we've been cultivating over the term of the path is a facsimile of, is similar to, is a sort of representation of the ultimate nature of our mind. So that's a sort of key part of this whole thing. So we're mixing the luminosity that you practiced on the path with the natural luminosity that dawns spontaneously in the manner of a mother and a child coming together. In other words, similar to what he just said a little while ago about a child recognizing the mother and jumping into their lap. Was that here? Is like the child is the mother's. We think the child is the mother's offspring. So we think that the luminosity that we develop during the path is like something separate from the natural luminosity. And when we become familiar with the child luminosity that we identify and cultivate with the path, so that we can then recognize the mother when it appears, by virtue of having some idea, familiarity with the child luminosity, it helps us to recognize the mother luminosity and then realize that those are not separate.
It's like a lot of times in the movie, walk into the light. They're always saying that, like, when time comes, you got to walk into the light.
Yeah,
and that is the mother, the light.
Yeah, in the Tibetan Book of the Dead, like in the Bardo Dharmata, where all the fierce and peaceful and wrathful deities appear day after day or week after week. The instruction always, over and over and over again, is don't shy away from the brightness of the experience, the intensity of the experience. Go into that intensity of that experience. It's like, we talk about dealing with intense emotions, and like in the Mahayana version, it's like touch the edge of them, go around them. The Vajrayana is just like go right into the essence of them, and that's what needs to happen. We need to have that ability afterwards in the Bardo Dharmata of not going with the habitual tendency of like, oh, I'll take the easy path. The toned down version of the green light and the red light and so forth.
Is that also in the Becoming? It's also in the Bardo of Becoming, right?
Yes. Is that what I called it the Bardo of Dharmata. That's the luminosity, right? Thank you very much. The Bardo of Becoming is where we encounter all the deities. Thank you very much.
Go for the bright light.
Yeah, turn on the bright light. Sue.
Oh, there's a wonderful animated movie that just won some award called Flow. Beautiful, beautiful animation, and there is a incredible death scene in it.
Really?
Where one of the characters goes. Yeah.
What's the name of it again?
Flow.
Flow. Flow.
Yeah, you can rent it on
Is that
Prime.
Is that the Lithuanian?
Somewhere
Yeah.
from
That's an
Eastern Europe.
amazing thing. Yeah, I haven't seen
I
it.
watched it with my grandsons, and it was just delightful. There's no words in it.
Yeah, the story of that, the making of it is also amazing. And that they won awards for it because they were like a real, indie, low budget, it's a really interesting story of just the maker of it too.
Well, my 10-year-old grandson said, "This isn't a movie, it's a game."
Uh,
He recognized the kind of graphics, I guess, but it's
yeah.
very beautiful.
Cool.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that reference. On Amazon Prime. Cool. Let's see. So you recognize the child and the mother come together like water poured into water, or space merging with space. That is said to be awakening as the Dharmakaya, the meaning of which is expressed in the following citations from the Laghu Samvara Tantra. Death is the thought, it leads us to the celestial abodes. Death is a thought. It is also said a single moment makes the difference. Instantly complete Buddhahood is attained if you're able to remain aware as you die. It's obviously not easy. The exalted Gampopa declares, with one thought following on another, how can there be death? In the pure Dharmakaya, how can there be death? In the disappearance of a rainbow painting, how can there be death? In the mind without birth or death, how can there be death? Even if your habituation to integrating death into the path is minimal. Maybe we haven't really thought about this or done this, and you're unable to awaken in a state of inseparable space awareness. It is taught that whatever path integration you have practiced previously will enable you to have control over the bardos in connecting with your next rebirth. At the very least, you will be someone with karmic continuity in your next life due to the power of interdependence. Well, that's hopeful, even though we're supposed to let go of hope. It's sort of like, if you made it this far in this book, you got something going on in terms of merit, at least.
I wonder if that quote that mentions rainbow painting, I wonder if that could be the source of the book title.
I skipped that, didn't
No, I think you read it. In the disappearance of a rainbow painting, how can there be death? I just wondered, I think, is it Tokurukin has a book that's called Rainbow Painting, or was it?
Yeah.
And
totally.
I wonder if that could be the source. Maybe it's
probably
common wording, but I hadn't noticed before.
Yeah, it might be a common phrase, rainbow painting.
Might be, but anyway, interesting that's.
But he teaches on Gampopa's four dharmas, so he's certainly familiar with the Gampopa's teachings. I think he was a Kagyu, Tulku of some Kagyu lineage, as well as obviously, in essence, a Nyingma.
Yeah, Drukpa, well, certainly
think
your
so.
name is Drukpa Kagyu, but I don't know if Tulku is a different
Yeah.
one. I can't remember.
This completes the explanation of enhancement by breaking through to the unborn and by path integration, right? So there were two types of enhancement: breaking through, the breakthrough, like when is my breakthrough gonna happen? Right? There was a whole thing about the time and the place and stuff that had that weird. That was the weirdest section of the book I thought so far. It had that one sentence that like repeated itself. Anyway, so that was some interesting stuff. I hope you enjoyed that. And should we end tonight, or should we do a review next week? What do people think?
I will not be here next week. I have family.
Okay, so you're indifferent. Anyone up for a review next week? All right, I certainly am. I think it would be very helpful for
I
me.
could listen to the recording.
There you go. That does it. We'll do it then.
Eric,
Yes, ma'am.
I also think we need to have a celebration.
Yes, thank you so much. This was a tradition that we had at all Rime Shadra courses. At the end, we would have a celebration, and we haven't.
We had it online at the beginning, and it was still very nice, and it
It is. It's great.
kind
And
of
next,
helpful, especially right now, in
thank you so much for suggesting this. Yeah,
So you're sending everyone 6 packs for that, right?
yeah,
So is that next week?
Just kidding.
it is next week. So
We'll
bring.
have a party.
Yeah, we have a party together online. Some refreshment, whatever you like, food, drink, and we'll do a little toast, and we'll, particularly since there's no new reading next week, which has been one of the impediments to doing it in the last few courses, right? So let's do that next week. Thank you, Barbara. That's a great idea.
I had
And
to do an email about that.
yeah, I
Well,
think I responded to that positively, right?
I'll have to look. I don't.
So many emails, right?
Somebody, you're right. It's true. And I probably get 4 times as many as I do. So
Yeah, so
Not
many
quite so
emails.
hard as in the good old days when we actually had to physically bring something. So we
Yeah, that was fun. That was the best.
indeed,
we had all kinds of stuff.
chocolates and
Yeah.
And yeah, big variety of stuff sometimes. Yeah.
We should do when we finish the book. We should try to like very hard to have it in person. We could do at the Alliance Center and have one of the practice days and like
right.
have that as a celebratory
Yeah.
event, and we all bring some stuff and hang out together would be really good. I mean, going through this whole book is like amazing, right? What an accomplishment. So anyway, let's conclude and do our dedication. By this merit may all attain omniscience, may defeat the enemy wrongdoing, from the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death, from the ocean of samsara may I free all beings. By the confidence of the golden sun of the great east, may the lotus garden of the Rigdon's wisdom bloom, may the dark ignorance of sentient beings be dispelled, may all beings enjoy profound, brilliant glory. Thank you, everyone. Great to see you.
Bye bye.
Take care.
Take care, everybody.
Don't let the duns get you.